All right. Welcome back, friends. Oh my goodness. This is officially episode 23 of
Ooh,
Conversations with Friends. Um, and if you're new, because maybe, I'm Dawn Scannell and I help women bounce back and bloom by building their resilience muscle through mindfulness, self love, gratitude, personal wellness, really honing in on your sacred support circle, right? Yeah, defining that sacred support circle because life happens, bounce back and bloom. All right, I'm here today with Chelsea Baratto, who is infamous for being super cute. Like when you smile, I hear giggles, right? No,
that's
seriously,
very
I don't
sweet.
know if it's the dimple or what, but it's been that way since the
Oh,
first time I met you. Like when
oh,
you
that's so
smile, I just
sweet.
hear giggles in my head.
I do giggle a lot too.
Um, so Chelsea, tell us a little bit about who you are, and why we're having this conversation today.
So, I am Chelsea Baratto, and I live in the Malta, Saratoga area. And I grew up in the Capital District and came back here after college. And I was a special ed teacher full time. That was my real job. That's what I went to school for. That was my career. And then life took all sorts of different turns. So I am currently at home with my little boy who's going by the second. And we are talking today because I just love to talk about all the things that we're not supposed to talk about. And that's
Yes, ma'am.
kind of my MO in life these
Yes,
days.
ma'am. Obviously, mine too. So talking about all those different twists and turns that life throws at us, right? Because it doesn't present them in front of us all nice and shiny and kindly. It just kind of hits us upside the head with these things. Um,
Absolutely.
you founded your nonprofit, right?
I did. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep. So
it's called 700 Smiles.
you got
And
it.
right. And I'll have to tell you all that that little boy of yours, charm personified.
This is true.
Yeah, because I was told, I believe it was Katie told me about him, and she said, oh, he's so shy, but he's so adorable. And I was like, oh no, that shyness isn't really a thing. That's his, that's, that's a tool.
He knows what he's doing.
He
He came out
does.
that way. I can take no credit for it. He came out that way.
He does. It's totally a tool for him and he uses it for good.
Mhm.
So please tell us about 700 Smiles.
Yeah. So when I was 18 weeks pregnant, we went in for our ultrasound. And I very naively, but I think commonly, was there with the expectation that we would be finding out the gender of our child. And we went through a long battle with infertility. Um, we, I felt like I had gotten to a point, I had a miscarriage. 18, 20 weeks is that time where I kind of like felt like, all right, like this is really happening. Like I'm going to be a mom. And my whole entire life, all I ever wanted was to be a mom. Like that was like my life's goal from when I was a child. Um, and so I sat there, waiting. We weren't going to find out what the reveal was in person. It was going to be run on an envelope, and we had this big elaborate plan because I'm a crazy planner person and I like to celebrate anything possible. And like we knew we were going to go to the restaurant. We were going to give the envelope to the waitress, and like based on what the answer was, like there was going to be this dessert. I mean, like it was like a full blown thing because why not? Um, and we sat there, and like I am notorious for having like the world's tiniest bladder in general life, but forget being pregnant. So I'm like wiggling and trying to be calm so we can do this, and it was taking a really long time. And I was familiar with ultrasound because going through infertility and getting pregnant, I had to have way more than normal just as they monitored pregnancy. So I started feeling like this isn't like great. This isn't, something's going on. And the ultrasound tech didn't say anything, but she said she wanted to go get the doctor. So that was like my moment of something's happening. And it's oddly like a blur, but also very clear exactly what happened. A doctor that wasn't my regular doctor came in because it was just whatever doctor happened to be there. And for me, I feel like it wasn't handled as well as it could have been. I don't think anybody wants to hear something's wrong with their baby, obviously. But I feel like I needed like kid gloves in that moment. Like I needed some gentle words and like tact, and the way that it was told to me just wasn't very sensitive. So I'm a crier in general, so I obviously just started crying. And they just told me, there's something wrong. We think we found a cleft lip with your baby. And in that moment, I think I had like a flash of like, maybe the commercials you see, like infomercials on TV of like kids born cleft lip, but I had never in my life known anyone that was born with cleft lip that I knew of. And what they said to me was like, we're gonna follow up on this. You're gonna meet with our teams. Don't go home and Google, and don't worry. And it was like, okay, go ahead. Meanwhile, like I'm sure I was just, a complete picture of panic. And we got in the car, and thankfully my husband was with me for this, but we got in the car and I just sobbed, sobbed and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And I had a moment of like, this is not fair. Like I was just mad at the world for a second, because not a second, many seconds. Because I'm pretty open about, I've had a lot of trauma in my life. We went through infertility. And I was like, damn it. Like, can I just have this moment? Like,
just one thing. Can I have one thing?
Like, God, where is my break? So I had a pity party for a little bit. Of course, in the tradition of being 2016 and this being what people did, we had this huge, gender reveal party for the next day, planned with all of our friends and family, because clearly 4 years ago it wasn't COVID, and everyone we knew wanted to come celebrate because I was open about our infertility journey. And again, like I was just ready to celebrate everything. So, that car ride home, I'm on my phone Googling, because you can't tell a mom that something's wrong with her baby and not to Google it. I mean, this is not reality. So anyway, so that was that's how we found out. And from that point forward, very quickly, I just decided that this was something I was not going to go through quietly or alone, because I think I felt like towards the end of our infertility journey, I started opening up. One, because I was frustrated with getting asked when you're going to have a baby, and I just started being bold and saying, you know what, we're working on it. But also because the more I talked about it, the more I realized that I wasn't alone at all. And it was just this taboo thing that we didn't talk about. So finding out that our baby was going to be born with a birth defect, as much as I didn't know anybody that was born with a cleft, I just felt like I needed help. I didn't want to go through another thing without support. So from that point forward, we were just really open about what was happening, because I needed it. I very honestly just needed someone to tell me that it was going to be okay, or that they were on the other side of it, or, that everything was going to be all right. So from then on, we had gone to Boston Children's Hospital, where we chose to plan on having his surgery. We were able to actually have an ultrasound and find out that his palate would not be affected, which was a huge, pretty much a child born with a cleft lip might have 1 to 3 surgeries in their lifetime, and a child born with a cleft palate could have 10 to 20 by the time they're 18. And in terms of feeding, and it's a really substantial difference.
So if it's the palate, that could affect all the things, right? The sinuses, like feeding could be a huge problem, because if you can't shut off your nose to swallow, you can't swallow.
Right.
right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and that's
So,
that's an issue with even, survival and thriving and
right.
gaining weight. And it's really um really much more severe circumstance. So we were able to go when I was pregnant to Boston, have an MRI and find out that the palate was not affected. So that was a relief. But again, I continued to just share that journey. At the time, I was blogging, but also just sharing on Facebook and just letting people support us, which I'm a very stubborn only child and have gone through a lot of things in my life alone. Um, but it was this point that brought me to, like, I don't choose to try to survive that way. And it wasn't helping me any longer. So
Right.
um,
I even just your journey with infertility. I've had a couple of conversations lately with women who have gone through that. That has a whole trauma attached to it too. And also that we don't normalize talking about how women do or do not get pregnant. And I do not mean the birds and the bees people. I'm talking about not everybody's journey to pregnancy is the same.
right.
And I think there's a lot of why is it we attach shame around things for women who can't get pregnant naturally or can't breastfeed or all the things like, can
Policy.
we just have the grace to say, wow, everybody's journey is different, and why
Mm-hmm.
can't we all just normalize all of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like nothing, no journey is right, no journey is wrong. The circumstances, yeah, so hard. I mean,
No.
the whole period is hard anyway, even with a normal pregnancy,
Right.
because all of the hormones and all of the
Mm-hmm.
changes that happen in your body. Then on top of it, to feel like, oh, I'm doing it differently, wrong, maybe, and
Mm-hmm.
then have something actually go wrong,
Yeah.
like a birth defect.
Right. Totally. Um, yeah. So there was a lot of emotional processing happening there. I had, you know, being at Boston Children's Hospital was a good wake up call for me because um, from the moment we pulled up, again, I'm a crier. I'm crying. I just, I tried to go up in line and order my smoothie, and I'm just crying. And I'm looking around, and I go up, and I have to have an MRI, and I'm walking down this hallway and going into the bathroom to get changed, and here's this little itty bitty who's probably 7 years old, bald, carrying his pole, and I'm like, Jesus, get it together, woman. Like, you can do this. Like, um so it wasn't it was a good wake up call, and it really just made me, kind of, all right, I can do this. One of my It's laughable, but one of my, like, really well received blogs is about my MRI. I It was horrific for me. I never had one before. I like, I thought I like had these in the moment visions of, like, I thought it was in war or something, like the sounds and the I had to be pulled out to puke. Like, it was just a comedy of errors. On top of, obviously, like, the stress and emotions of being there. I'm glad I can laugh about it now. But um, so, that was halfway through my pregnancy. I definitely spent those last 20 weeks, beyond worried. I think the emotional process that women go through preparing for birth and preparing for the transition to be a mother is just immense, anyways. But there was just so many unknowns. I just
Right.
didn't.
So did they have to have special people on standby for the birth and all that? I almost feel
Yeah.
I almost feel like, my birth experience, my son will be 32 this Wednesday. This Wednesday. But, what going into a quote unquote normal birth where you don't think there's any complications or anything, nothing is foreseen, and then having things go wrong, right? Um, I'm not, I almost feel a little bit like it would have been comforting to know that something was going to go wrong and there were extra people, instead of what happened to me with me, which was, oh my God, all of a sudden we had to, called in the circus clowns, is
Right.
how I felt, but that's my mind.
Yeah. No, I think it's all circus. I went, he didn't want to come out. He was comfy in there. I went 41 weeks, had to be induced, all of that drama. I was only for 41 hours. I had to end in a C-section because that boy was not coming out of me. It was all the things. And honestly, obviously, like everyone says, when it's all said and done and he's out and he's on my
Right.
chest, and none of it mattered anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And it was, everyone assured me, because in my process of being open about it, I was able to be connected with, so quickly. There was my husband's coworker's neighbor had a son born with cleft lip, and all of a sudden all these connections came out, and I had these people during those last 20 weeks to lean on and to tell me that this is going to be okay, that this is going to happen, and all the thoughts that I was having. And it was that moment of being vulnerable that really saved me from suffering through that alone. And that just changed a lot for me, in terms of kind of how I wanted to show up as a female for other females. So after birth, I definitely had postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. I just struggled. It was hard, and everything combined. I can't say it was one thing or the other, but it was just, all of it was a lot. And I felt like I needed a place to be completely open and vulnerable, and just one night sleep deprived, and no sense of what I needed, but I needed something. That's where From Coffee to Wine was born, and it's just a private Facebook group for women only. And I really needed a place to, at 3 o'clock in the morning when the world is sleeping, but I'm up feeding a baby and sobbing for some reason that I wasn't sure why. I needed a place to go and say, like, is this normal? Like, am I going to be all right? Is this normal? What's happening? And because I didn't feel like it existed, I decided I was going to make it. And if there was 10 people in it, then that was fine with me, if they were going to show up as their vulnerable selves too. So that happened soon after Luca was born. And then when he was about 6 months old, right around the time where he had his lip repair at Boston Children's, I was, there's an event called World Smile Day. And someone, the vice president from Smile Train, saw I had tagged a picture on Instagram with the hashtag "Let Your Smile Change the World." And he had seen that and reached out to me and just said, "Hey, like, I'm the VP of Smile Train. I just wanted to see if I could help you, if I could connect you with anyone, if you're, how you're feeling about surgery upcoming, if you want to vent about this." Like, totally just felt like this gift from the internet of, like, someone genuinely just checking on me, like, knowing what I was going through. And I was just beyond touched by that. They sent him this little bear that has a scar, like, from the lip repair, and all this little Smile Train stuff. And I just felt, so less alone in that
Right.
journey at the moment. So again, in my sleep deprived state, I decided, all right, we're gonna fundraise for Smile Train. And 700 Smiles comes from the fact that 1 in 700 children are born cleft affected, so either lip and or palate. So we have a very big goal of funding 700 surgeries through Smile Train by the time Luke is 18.
Where are you at now?
I think we're at, oh gosh, 110 maybe.
110. And when did you start it?
So unofficially when he was like 6 months old, and then he started like tallying and being like, all right, we're gonna really do this and go for it and call it something. And
how much money funds one child's surgery?
So shockingly, it's $250 is what Smile Train is able to do the surgery for, which is just, it's so astonishing to me, because one of the things that I always reflect on, and Smile Train has had me talk about this a bazillion times because we've gotten really involved with them, but for me, for all the things that I was feeling when I found out your son's going to be born with a cleft lip, I mean, the emotions, all of the things, the thing I didn't ever have to stop and worry about was, am I going to be able to afford this? By no means is our insurance system in the United States perfect. But I am lucky enough to have good health insurance. And from the moment where we found out that was going to, my baby was going to need surgery, I didn't have to question if that was going to be an option for my child. And that's just not the reality in the rest of the world.
Right.
Not only could they possibly not afford it, but there might not even be a qualified physician to perform the surgery. They might not be able to get to the place where that surgeon exists. They're working in situations where, okay, if my child is born and I can't breastfeed, we don't have clean water to be able to, if I even happen to have access to formula, make that happen. And again, when I think about just my heart as a mother and the things that I was feeling, add on the fact, if I was in a position where I don't know if I can provide my child with that surgery, again, that's one of those things that I just can't wrap your head around, of how you would handle that, how you would deal with that as a mother. So clearly, I've become very impassioned about helping them, funding them, supporting them, and not to say that my goal isn't completely selfish, because I want Luca to grow up feeling like, it's ironic in the fact that, and you brought this up at the beginning, which I don't know if I've even never told anybody this, but I have one dimple. My husband has two dimples. Luca got all three. So he has three dimples, and he has the most ridiculously cute smile. And that's where I laugh, and I'm like, where's my break? The kid, I spent 22 weeks so worried about what his sweet smile would look like, and he came out with three dimples.
Right.
And has charmed everyone ever since.
Yeah. Big time.
So I just know, one of the women that I did meet when I first shared that I was going to have a child born with cleft, she's local here, and she told me one of the best things that she did for her son, who's now entering his teenage years, was getting involved with fundraising, because kids are brutal, right? We all know. And there's going to be days where he'll get teased for his scar, or he'll get questions, or whatever the circumstance may be. And I feel really comforted by the fact that, other than everything I'm doing as a mom and as with my husband as parents to raise him as a confident little boy, I love that I will have the ability to say, buddy, listen, along with everything you've been through and the strong person that's made you, you have helped X number of kids across this entire world been able to get surgery. And I just hope when I need that in my back pocket, that in some way or form it'll help on a tough day. So
that's great. Can we talk a little bit about, so how does a cleft lip or a cleft palate happen? Is it a recessive gene? Is it just the luck of a...
They don't know. They really don't know.
Really?
We had all sorts of genetic testing done while I was still pregnant, which was not to identify the cause of the cleft lip, but to make sure that it wasn't accompanied by any other syndrome, as cleft sometimes can be. But there is no known cause. So that is also part of it, again, as a mom, where I, had days of what did I do wrong? What did I do? How did I, of course it had to be my fault. It's in my belly. I must have done something. And that's just not the truth. It's not, there's no cause has been identified. There's a lot of studies that do think, it's a recessive gene type situation, but it's just never been, they can't get a concrete enough answer to be able to say this is XYZ. So.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So When you're fundraising, are you constantly fundraising? Do you have one big event a year for that? How do you do it?
So we started when Luca was 1.5. So in January is the World Smile Day. So our first year, we had this little event at a restaurant in Latham where we had a room full of baskets. The chef at the restaurant actually was cleft affected as a child, and he, said he wanted to be involved and donate a percentage of the dining tickets from that day. So we had a great first inaugural event, and then the next year, Luca was obviously older, 2.5, and I felt really, I really wanted it to be something that he could enjoy and be a part of. And at 2.5, that was not something that was going to take place in a restaurant. So we had Smile Day, and we had it at Aframs in Latham, which is just essentially a big open soccer field. And we had the most tremendous community support. My heart was literally bursting that day. From people I know in the wedding world that came and made smile balloon arches, donated bouncy bounces. Some local schools came and brought ball pits, and it was just this celebratory late afternoon, early evening. We had a bazillion raffles that were donated, and it was just this day for kids to come and be kids. And we have really fun things like a cake walk and a wine walk. So the majority of our fundraising is centered around that. Currently, my basement is ground zero for that event because obviously COVID came and there was not going to be an event last year. And I spent from the, essentially the day after the first event on, I was gearing up for the next one. So we are very excited for when the world can be together again and we can have another one. Luca asks me all the time about when's Smile Day. So yeah, and I look forward to having it grow with him, because I want it to be something where he feels celebrated. I don't want it to feel like a pity party. I don't want it to be I don't want to have any negative connotation around it. So my goal is for it to grow along with him. So
nice.
yeah.
If somebody wanted to just donate any time towards that, right? They sure could.
Yeah, yep. We always our team, 700 Smiles, lives forever on Smile Train's website. It's always up. They do a lot of. I like to share when they do a lot of matching donations with big corporations that get involved. So there's a lot of times where you can donate and get your donation doubled or tripled a couple times a year. They do a 5 times match, so I scream that one from the rooftops. But we have a Facebook page for 700 Smiles. It's been quiet this year. To be very honest, I struggle with when the world is struggling so painfully this last year and a half. Not just COVID, but everything else in the world. I definitely get quiet because in terms of 700 Smiles, I get loud about everything else, but I get quiet about us because I just feel like in the moment of this last year, there's just been a lot of other stuff we need to focus on. But it's always there. And we're grateful for, we just have a lot of people that have shown up for us in so many ways. It's not only money, but support and love and stories and, connecting us with other people. I'm just really grateful for all of that.
So now he's had one surgery and that's all that's required for him?
So he had a lip repair at 6 months, and that was brutal for me. It was an 8-hour-long surgery.
Can't imagine.
So, I had to hand my 6-month-old over and let him go for 8 hours. That is the biggest surgery for a cleft affected child. He will have kind of optional things as he grows. He also has a kind of like a kind of just like a gap in his tooth that will have to be repaired eventually with probably a bone graft. And then depending how he grows and develops, a lot of times because a cleft, the differentiation is it can be complete or incomplete. So incomplete means that it does not reach the nose, and complete means it's split completely to the nose. So his cleft was incomplete, but his nose was still affected. So he might have to have some revisions as he gets older, depending on how he grows. And that actually just reminded me of something that's pretty interesting, is that, of course, I wouldn't know, and nobody would know this unless you studied clefts, but we, in utero, we all have a cleft. The lips are joined when a baby develops in utero. So we all start with that gap. And it's what happens for whatever reason is that in utero cleft affected children, it does not meet. So it's interesting that it's not something, I think the way I would have pictured it if I didn't know better is, we think of like a splitting, like something came apart, but it's not. It's that it just never fully came together.
Oh, that makes so much more sense now. Which
Yeah.
is why I was asking, like, what is it that causes it?
Right, right, because you think, yep, yeah, it's pretty crazy. And actually, there's cases of, so say like 18, 20 weeks when mine was found, they identify the cleft. But there are times that fusion is supposed to happen. I actually think it's at like 4 to 6 weeks of pregnancy. So usually people don't even know they're pregnant at that point. But there's times when they find it at the ultrasound and it's supposed to be so beyond the point of where that would fuse together. But sometimes it still does happen very late in pregnancy. So there's people that expect their child to be born with clefts, and instead they'll be born with either like the teeniest, tiniest one, or almost like a scar that developed in utero because the body repaired itself, but it literally repaired itself, so there's a scar. So it's like, it's fascinating.
Yeah, no, that's totally fascinating. Like the human body has such a capacity for like miraculous things, right? We usually focus on, right, or notice the things that go wrong, but it's we are walking miracles, everyone.
100%.
Yeah. So what has this experience, right, for all of that you've walked through, but what are the gifts that it's given you?
Oh my gosh, so many. Just what you were saying, I mean, the miracle part of, I've always felt like infertility was honestly the biggest blessing, because I still, he's gonna be so, it's ingrained in his head forever, but like I still look at Luca like every day and I'm like, I can't believe I grew you in my stomach, number one, my uterus. Like this is mind blowing, right? That like we can grow humans, women can grow humans. Like,
right, we're so crafty. We craft human beings right in our bodies.
Exactly. Like, and there's clearly a reason. I'm sorry, but that job is not given to men, right? Like this wouldn't have worked. So we do that. That's insane. But just, kind of like I said, I just wanted to be a mom so badly, and having to struggle that extra bit to get there. I think I'd like to think I would have appreciated it no matter what, but I just really don't take these moments for granted. And I feel like that's the gift that infertility gave me, is that, it's hard. Being a mother is the hardest, but I am so grateful for every second of that struggle and every second of the joy, because I feel like I got a taste of almost not being able to have that. And because of that, I'm so, so grateful. And that has just, I really do feel like that's such a gift, to have that experience. And again, as far as his cleft journey, I feel like I'm his mom for a reason. And if whatever parts of me were chosen to be the mom that he needed to be, then I'd like to think that I've been able to do the best that I could for him. And I don't know how it all works. I don't really know what I think about. I'm not very religious. I'm not very I don't really subscribe to anything in particular. Um, but I like to think that I was chosen as his mom for a reason. And I'm going to do everything I can to, make sure that he is a happy, healthy man in his life. And that's just really what's important to me. So I think perspective is the gift of all of it. And from any trauma, from any life experience, I think always a good reminder that one of my favorite quotes is, you don't know. Everyone's fighting a battle you know nothing about, and it's just so damn true. Like, in the world of social media, in the world of filters, we share our highlight reel, we share the best parts of our day. And I like to be obnoxious and like share the worst part of my day, because I just know the feeling of looking and thinking like, wow, that person has it all together. They're not sobbing into their morning coffee like that, and it's just not true. We share our best parts, but we all have stuff. Every single damn one of us has stuff. And I just don't think we're doing each other any favors by pretending that we aren't, by posting that filtered picture. Like, it's not helping us. It's not helping any single one of us. And I just think that it's really made all these things added up have just made me really passionate about showing up for other women. Because I think the way of our world and the way women are tasked with all of the things and expected to be good at all of the things at the same time with a smile. Like, I can't speak up loudly enough against that. That's not realistic.
No, it's not. In fact, I've started saying something, that thing, okay, because I'm older, I'll be 60 this year. There was this thing in the 70s, women can have it all, right? And then through the 80s, it was like, can they have it all? And I'm like, well, here's the bottom line. We fucking do it all.
For sure.
Right? Like, and why? Because we have to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And COVID has shown this to be absolutely the truth, because I've watched and monitored and reached out to my mom friends, like, how you doing? I see you. You're tired. I see you struggling. Like, I can't even imagine. And now the numbers are up into 2.5 million women have left the workforce this last year. We're back to early 1980 numbers of women in the workforce. And now my heart hurts, because I know when we start going back, we're going to have to fight for all the things again. And it is so wrong. So when you talk about like women really, really need to support other women, it is absolutely true, because if we don't show up for each other, who's going to show up for us?
Right.
Right.
No one else can understand, I mean, there's plenty of amazing men out there.
Absolutely.
But they just cannot, I personally do not believe that they are capable of fully understanding what it means, what women carry, what moms carry, it's very complex. And I really have a fear about, I talked a long time about the unfiltered life. And I really fear how we're not showing up for each other in that way. And that's one of the things that keeps me up at night, is because I just think we're not doing each other any favors. And when we think about, my God, the next generation.
Right. Right. Like, I show up for these interviews, I show up made up, but like on my lives every day, there's not a stitch of makeup on here. And usually I normally don't take a shower. If I don't have interviews, I don't take a shower till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So my hair is just like, yeah, okay. Yep. Mhm. And then here's Dawn, mostly don't have a bra on. Sometimes I'm still wearing my pajamas, but you know what I mean? So if people are showing up on my page, they know when Dawn's made up and when Dawn's not, because I show up all the different ways,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And filters, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. I don't want anybody to be shocked when they meet me in person and go, whoa, you're who?
Not what you look like.
Exactly. No,
Ah.
nope. You're gonna see the same person. Um, but so how has COVID, like how rough was that for you this last year as a mom with a little tiny?
Yeah, I can't say it's not brutal. I mean, it was, so obviously COVID started in March. September was when Luca started school for the first time, and it was only a 2 day a week, a couple hours in the morning, 2-year-old program. And that was the first time he was ever away from me. And we did phenomenal. I obviously was very concerned, and he couldn't have been more confident walking into that classroom. And I did great, and we got into routine. So September to March, we were just living this life, feeling like, yeah, we got like this kind of balance thing going. Like, it kind of like, we're kind of doing this. And then obviously March it just ended, and trying to explain to a child what's happening and why when we walk around the neighborhood he can't run up and hug his friends, and then masks. And I would have to say that all the children I've experienced have been much more mature and happy to wear their masks than the majority of adults I've encountered. But still, you gotta wear this mask on your face now. And it broke my heart that he, now it's been a year. He missed a year really of being like a kid.
Really? All that
And that,
no socialization. I just
yeah, it's sad. And then, um, I had to figure out what I was doing in terms of like taking care of me, because I can't leave the house. I can't go anywhere. Um, and I very quickly found myself thinking like, I know what this feels like when I had a newborn that,
right. I was just thinking that it's like having a newborn again and being so
yeah, you
tied.
can't, yeah. And like, I couldn't even, I'm grateful. I have a great network of girlfriends. When I had a newborn, I could take him and go to their house, and God, who knows what I didn't care what I looked like. I had someone to talk to and not feel just completely alone in my house. So this was very reminiscent of that. And that, not having conversations, not seeing people. And, I'm a hugger. I love seeing people. I actually, like 3 weeks ago, probably, I was taking Luca to an appointment, and it was in an office building where I assume what happened is a woman ran to the bathroom and she forgot her mask, and we were just sitting in like the waiting room area. We had our masks on, but she smiled at me, and honestly, I think it was like a nervous smile because she realized like, oh shit, I don't have a mask on. But to me, I was like, I mean, truly, I teared up in that moment. I was like, I can't believe how much I miss smiling with strangers.
Right.
Like, I don't know who that woman was, but like, she smiled at me, and I'm like, oh my God, like, we don't get to do that, right? Like, we don't
Right.
get to smile at people. So just, yeah, it was really challenging. And I live in a great neighborhood, a great group of women where we did our best to like, we would literally walk around the streets. And in the beginning, when, we're all figuring this out together, we didn't know how things could be transmitted. I would walk on one side of the street, and my girlfriend would walk around on the other, and we would walk around the neighborhood yelling to each other from the street. So we need to get out of the house and have an adult conversation.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I can't imagine the women trying to work from home and have their kids on virtual learning, and like, it's just it's too much, just doesn't suffice for explaining what it is. Like, just beyond. So as much as, you know, I had my hard days of being stuck in the house, you know, there's women trying to do their jobs
Yeah.
and have their kids on a computer doing school, which, like, that's not, you know, my teacher heart was breaking every day that I'm like, this is not how kids need to learn. This is not for kids. This is not, you know, we're going to be paying the price of this for a really long time, as women in the education system, all around. It's just, it's tough. There's no easy way around that. And I know I personally get, you know, I joke about the fact that at the beginning we thought we would all buy one mask and be stuck inside for like 2 weeks, and that sounded like horrific. Um, and now we're 52 weeks later with, you know, probably 52 masks, and we survived it, which many people can't say, right? Like, we have
Right.
to acknowledge that
Yes.
that's the real truth of the matter. But I think we're all forever changed. And again, it was just, I had to, I felt like a weight of responsibility in, you know, even from coffee to wine, to be like, hey, like, if you're not okay, that's okay. Like, we're not okay right now. Like,
Yeah, it
that's
was
okay.
right. Like we all went through this last year of trauma, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like at first when people started throwing that word around, there were a lot of people like, oh, that's a little harsh. I was like, no, this is actual trauma. And if for the people who have experienced trauma in their life before this, it's just all compounded, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
just taking on more layers of trauma. And the longer it went on, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience, you have to keep checking yourself. You have to keep checking in like, okay, you know, where am I withdrawing? What am I,
Mm-hmm.
what have I let slide that I wouldn't normally let slide? You know, because this is not going to be good in the long run. You just have to keep checking yourself. And I wonder, you know, like 10 years from now, who is going to be doing the checking in with the kids, right? To find out how this effect is going to affect them long term. Because even though kids seem like they're doing kid things, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, they're sleeping well or whatever, we all know because we all grew up right through our own set of stuff. And we still acted like kids. Like, how is this affecting everybody down the road, you know, all through the different developmental stages, you know,
Right.
like
Right.
how are the teens in 10 years, now young
Yeah.
adults, how are they approaching starting a family or not, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I was stuck in my house with my family for a year. I
Yeah,
am not going down that road.
I'm not getting married, I'm not having kids.
Saw how that works. Not interested.
But like we're laughing about it, but
But
it's
no, it's
probably going to be an actual
no,
thing.
it's very, very, very possible.
But so many
Yeah.
things now down the
Yeah.
road, how the ripple effects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had a friend point out to me the other day that in school, when we learned about the Roaring Twenties and the Spanish flu, that we never really were taught about how one came after the other and how the relationship between the two. And it's a
Right.
very good point that things are gonna, you know,
Right.
look a
Like
little
I've been,
different.
yeah. Yeah. There was like, I do a lot of my social angsting on Twitter because I don't really, I have a few friends on Twitter that overlap into the other social medias, but mostly I'm over there ranting and raving with people who really don't see me any other place. So it's my safe zone.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like a woman posted last week how like these like little house on the prairie dresses, you know, they're like shapeless and stuff. That's the spring style. She's like, oh, hell no. I've been stuck in the house for 12 months. I'm going to be wearing very little as far as clothing when I finally get to go back out into the world. And like people like getting ready to have sex again, like singles, right? The chatter out there is enormous. I'm like, oh my God, man, we thought the baby boom of the, you know, the 60s, mid 50s to early 60s was bad. Oh, we ain't seen nothing yet, boy. People are raring to go. Somebody
True.
posted, I took my mom to get her first shot. This woman is in her 80s and 4 different old men hit on her. So so like even the seniors are like starved for,
Yeah.
companionship and stuff. I was like, yeah, there's so many layers of this we don't even
So many
know.
layers, so many layers. And that's another, I mean, my single girlfriends and my single family members that, again, not to say that it's peachy being in a house with a kid and a husband, but there was people that went through this literally alone. And
Right.
it's like the impact of that, like it's just, it's so beyond anything we can understand and know how to do it right and how to be there for each other. And it's just, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a friend who went through and is still going through this down in Queens with his mom, who's in her late 80s, who normally went to Florida in the winter, and his ex-wife. They've spent the year together in a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens. He's been sleeping in the living room on a pull-out couch, and they've all like very, like for the first 10 months, they never even left the apartment.
Mm.
Right. And he's a photojournalist. So he's the photos that have been coming out, man. Oh my God. He's won a couple of awards, but they've been picked up and they've been interviewed like across the world. All these different places have come to them. But that's just one like story
Right, right.
of what people have gone through.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We need to talk about it more. I want to know more stories like that, right? Like put
Right.
them out
Yeah.
there so that when people can finally show up again, like we could talk about it. So who did you quarantine
Right.
with?
Yeah. How did that go for you?
Yeah. But yeah, people completely alone. I cannot,
Yeah.
cannot. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm a little, um, I get nervous going out now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how I feel about like when they say, okay, everybody can gather again. I'm like, how do we know? Like,
Right. Well, I think there's been so much distrust, and clearly the media has been a mess for the last minimum of a year. Um, I think, and again, I think this is the trauma showing itself, that it's not as easy as saying like, okay, if by some miracle we had like 100% vaccine rate, we would all still be like, but can we really go out without our mask? Like, is that, can we really hug people? Like we've now lived this. It wasn't 2 weeks. It wasn't, and now you don't just go back. I hate that saying, the new normal, but it's like we don't know. Now we don't
right,
know. We can't trust that you can just go out without a mask. It's just so
right.
bizarre.
Like, so
So
my husband,
bizarre.
my husband and I, our thing is we go out and we listen to live music. So we practically live at the egg. Even the week of shutdown, we saw 2 shows before the shutdown happened,
Mm.
right? In that week. And I'm thinking of like being in the egg where we're shoulder to shoulder and, in the small theater even, let alone the large theater. And I'm like, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel the first time I go back
Right.
in there and sit there
Right.
with a full audience.
Mm-hmm.
What that is going to, it's like my back is crawling just thinking about it.
Right. 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 It's the effects are not just going to go away. Right.
Right.
Like we can't just flip a switch, and just like any other trauma, you can't just decide it's over and you're going to go back to that old version of yourself. It's not how it works.
Yeah. So is there
There.
anything you want to leave with people about 700 smiles, smile train, any of that?
I just think that one of the biggest lessons I've learned throughout all of this is that for us, it's smile train, right? I had a child born with a cleft lip. We decided to be loud and proud about that. And I think that the greatest gift we can give to each other as humans is that if you feel called and able to share whatever it is that you want to be loud and proud about, whatever that is, whatever your story is, I think that we can only do better for each other if we can show up like that. So it's not going to be my story, but whatever your story, obviously, this is what you're doing. I just think it's so powerful when we can be humans with each other, um, and be there for each other, because everyone is going through something. And if
100.
no one knows it, we can't show up for each other. Um, and I just think that if you're called to share your story, and if you think, oh, it's small in this grand scheme of things, or there's bigger, it doesn't matter. Um, we're all in need of the reality of life. And I think if you're called to do that in any way, shape, or form, that I hope you'll just do it, because we need that from each other.
I totally agree. I love that you ended with that. All of the links, when I post this, if you're watching this, the links were in the post. But if for some reason you can't find Chelsea, you found me, hit me up. I'll hook you up. Thank you again for being gracious
Thank
enough to
you.
show up and speak your truth with us and be transparent and make it easier for somebody out there, because you guaranteed there's moms going through the same thing all over the world right now. And hopefully one person, if every time I do one of these, I'm like, if just one person feels like, oh my God, I've been seen, then
100%.
yeah, I'm good.
100%.
I'm
That's right.
good.
Totally.
All right. Well, you have a really great day. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Chelsea.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, you know what to do for me to send me the love. Subscribe. Please subscribe, because that just makes YouTube throw them out there and more people find us and more people get to listen. Have a great day. Bye-bye, people.